All right, let's bring in the senior fellow at National Review Institute, Andy McCarthy. Andy, always great to see you. I mean, the big question here is, as our previous guest said, you know, they treated him, this is the kind of raid that you do on a drug dealer, not a former sitting president. Why didn't they just subpoena the documents?
Well, I think you can't separate this, Jackie, from some of the other things they've done in the last several weeks. So you could have asked the very same question with respect to Jeffrey Clark and John Eastman, two of the lawyers who've come up in the investigation who the Justice Department knows are represented by counsel. The stuff that they wanted from those lawyers, they could easily have issued grand jury subpoenas. Instead, they very intrusively raided with a search warrant the home of Clark, and they braced Eastman and detained him for a short amount of time to take his cell phone as he was coming out of a restaurant. They didn't need to do it that way. But I think the Justice Department is under a lot of pressure, political pressure from the Democratic base to bring charges against Trump and the people who were working with Trump in connection with the events that led up to the Capitol riot.
Yeah.
And, you know, they need to show the Democratic base that they're on the case and working aggressively. But they don't have a case. So I think they don't want to come out and say, you know, Trump is the subject of a criminal investigation arising out of the Capitol riot. They don't want to be in a position of being perceived that they've told the court that they have probable cause, which you would need to get a warrant on that basis of such crimes. So, you know, with respect to the lawyers, they say, oh, there's a Justice Department Office of Inspector General investigation that we're searching for evidence in connection with. And here they're saying, oh, this is about the Presidential Records Act and, you know, potential mishandling of classified information. It's all about January 6th.
Yeah. No, I think you make a really good point there. And a lot of the media has made the point that the, you know, investigations aren't related, but it's difficult to believe that they're not. Andy, let me ask you this. From a legal standpoint, when you get a warrant, federal judge issues this warrant to the FBI. We don't know exactly what's on it, right? But let's say it pertains to these alleged documents that are in his possession. FBI goes in, say they find the documents, but then they went in his personal safe and they found something else. Now, my understanding is they did go into the safe. There wasn't really anything in there. But having said that, in an investigation like this, what if they stumble upon something that wasn't necessarily cited in the warrant? Can they take it? Can they use it?
Yeah, the rule of the road is as long as the agents have a lawfully legitimate basis to be on the premises and searching, they can take anything that obviously looks like evidence of a crime. And in this connection, that's why, Jackie, I think it's important that this is a Presidential Records Act aspect to this. So it's not just classified information that they may be looking for. If they're aware that there's a claim that he's taken documents in violation of the Presidential Records Act, even though that's not a criminal statute, that would give them additional basis to take government records if they saw them. And as for the safe, you would presume that they had authority to go into the safe. I mean, the whole reason of going to get a search warrant in any normal case would be to search places where people might keep evidence of crime. I'm not accusing the former president of committing a crime. I'm just saying that basically it would be strange if you had a search warrant and you didn't look in the safe.
Right. I understand that. But what if, you know, the safe wasn't explicitly listed in the warrant? What if they didn't know the safe was there? And what if they just decided while they were there, I'm what-ifing right now, that they wanted to go in it?
Well, it would be pretty standard practice for the agents to put in, and the U.S. Attorney's Office to put in the warrant that they're allowed to, when they go in the premises, to look in any, you know, obvious compartments or concealment containers and that sort of stuff.
So you think they're covered? They covered themselves. They have enough experience
on that. I think they're covered. Sure.
Okay. Right. And I'm also just wondering, you know, as we see, as we're sitting here right now, right, Hunter Biden's laptop, Hillary Clinton and her emails on the server. I've made this point before in the previous hour that investigations, you know, when there are suspicious activities surrounding Democrats, they seem to be carried out very differently, if at all. And you see what happened here with Trump. I mean, he says this was a fishing expedition and that they're after him, and it's just political posturing. If it were the same on both sides, I would say that he doesn't have an argument. But it's hard to contest that.
Jackie, I don't think anything has people more angry in the country than not only the perception, but the reality that we have a two-tiered justice system. You know, when Hillary Clinton was under investigation for intentionally creating a system to defeat the government's record-keeping procedure where classified information was implicated, they never tossed her residence. They never did anything that aggressive. They went to her lawyers and asked, pretty please, would you please cooperate with us? And when it turned out that she gave only 30,000 of the 60,000 emails that, you know, that she had, they were like, well, that's okay. You know, we'll just do the case based on what you gave us. I mean, it's obvious that both sides are not being treated equally, and that's what has people so angry. You want to know why you got Trump in the first place? This is why you got Trump.
Yeah, and there was that soundbite during the election where they asked her if she had wiped the server, and she was trying to be cute and, you know, and made a joke out of it. I mean, to people that were watching, to some people, it wasn't really that funny. Andy McCarthy, always great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for breaking that all down.
Thanks, Jackie.